No, turn it up. I said, turn it up. More bass. I'm not backing down.
It is a warm afternoon in 1982 on the Ventura Freeway in Los Angeles. A 24-year-old artist is driving his Rolls-Royce with his younger brother sitting in the passenger seat. He is so completely hypnotized by a rhythm playing inside his head that he does not notice the smell of smoke rising from under the hood. He does not notice the flames licking at the bottom of the engine bay. A passing motorcyclist pulls alongside screaming and pointing frantically at the bottom of the vehicle. They pull over just seconds before the car bursts into a wall of fire. As they stand on the shoulder watching the luxury car burn to the ground, the young man is not crying about the car. He is still humming the bass line under his breath. His name was Michael Jackson, and the bass line he almost died for was about to become the single most famous song in modern pop history. We will get to how that very bass line sparked a bitter months-long war between Michael and the most powerful music producer in Hollywood. But not yet, because here is the strange thing about Billie Jean. You think you know it. You have heard that drumbeat at weddings and supermarkets on retro radio stations and on stadium speakers for 40 years. It sold over 10 million copies and transformed a shy 24-year-old into a global icon. And yet almost everything you assume about where the song came from and what it really cost the man who wrote it is completely backwards. It was not born out of a glamorous Hollywood party. It was not a calculated corporate pop track designed by committee. In fact, Quincy Jones hated the opening 29 seconds so much, he begged Michael to cut it from the album entirely. This is not a story about a pop star boasting about his fame. It is not a story about a fictional romance. It is a story about a terrifying real-life stalker who mailed a gun to a family house, a drum kit wrapped in brown paper to trap sound, and an artist who trusted his gut when everyone else told him he was wrong. The song is Billie Jean. The artist is Michael Jackson. And this is the true story of the track that almost burned down before the world ever heard it. To understand where Billie Jean was born, you have to look at Michael Jackson in late 1981. He was 23 years old, living at the Jackson family estate in Encino, California. On the surface, he had already achieved massive success with his 1979 album, Off the Wall. But inside, Michael was frustrated. He felt the music industry still viewed him as a child star from the Jackson 5, not as a master songwriter. He locked himself in his home studio Havenhurst, determined to build something that would break every record ever made. One morning, Michael sat down at his synth keyboard and laid down 4 simple notes: F sharp, C sharp, E, F sharp. It was a dark, pulsating bass line that moved with an anxious, hypnotic swing. He added a steady, hypnotic drum beat boom, sh-clap-tush. He recorded his own voice doing vocal hiccups and bass grooves onto a multi-track tape. Listen to what that bass line is actually doing underneath the rhythm. Michael Jackson was tapping into a classic music theory trick called a modal ostinato in F-sharp minor. Instead of resolving to a bright chord, the bass line loops continuously over 2 bars, holding your ear in a permanent state of unresolved tension. It does not go anywhere. It just paces back and forth like a caged panther. That feeling of restless motion is the entire engine of the track. Now here is the detail everyone misses. Michael did not just write the song in a studio. He felt it in his body. He later recalled in his autobiography Moonwalk that a song has to make you want to dance before you even know what the words mean. If the bass line does not move your feet within 5 seconds, the song is dead. But as Michael brought the demo into Westlake Recording Studios on Beverly Boulevard, the stakes immediately skyrocketed. Because standing inside the control room was Quincy Jones, the legendary 60-year-old producer who had worked with Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, and Count Basie. Quincy was a musical titan, and he had very clear ideas about what made a hit record. When Quincy listened to Michael's demo of Billie Jean, he shook his head. He looked at Michael and pointed out 3 major problems that he believed would kill the song on arrival. First, Quincy hated the title. He argued that when people heard the name Billie Jean, they would immediately think of the tennis star Billie Jean King. Quincy urged Michael to change the title to Not My Lover. Second, Quincy felt the intro was way too long. The bass line played solo for 29 full seconds before Michael even sang a single word. In 1982, radio stations demanded vocals within 10 seconds. Quincy insisted that 29 seconds of a looping bass line would bore listeners to death and make DJs turn off the record. So hold that thought, because Michael Jackson did something almost unheard of for a 24-year-old artist speaking to a legendary producer. He said no. Michael stood his ground. He told Quincy, "The title is Billie Jean because it is about all the girls who claim my brothers had their kids." And when Quincy insisted on trimming the 29-second intro, Michael looked him in the eye and said, "Quincy, that intro is the whole song. Makes me want to dance." And this is where it gets strange. The real inspiration behind Billie Jean was far darker than anyone at the record label realized. Back in 1981, a woman had begun sending letters to the Jackson family house in Encino. At first, they were standard fan letters, but slowly the tone shifted into something disturbing. She claimed that Michael was the father of one of her twin boys. Michael had never met the woman in his life, but the letters kept coming, dozens of them filled with graphic details and desperate pleas. Then a package arrived at Havenhurst. Inside was a photograph of the woman along with a loaded gun and a letter. The letter instructed Michael to kill himself on a specific date and time, promising that she would kill herself and the baby at the exact same moment so they could be together in the next life. The Jackson family immediately turned the package over to the police and placed guards around the property. Michael was haunted by the experience. He suffered nightmares for months, terrified by the thought that someone could build an entire lie around him and believe it so deeply. That emotional scar became the core of the lyric. When Michael sings, "Billie Jean is not my lover, she's just a girl who claims that I am the one," he is not bragging about a fling. He is singing about the horror of being hunted by an illusion. Before we go further, if you love discovering the hidden true stories behind the greatest music ever recorded, hit the subscribe button and stay with me. Because the way Michael Jackson and sound engineer Bruce Swedian captured that iconic drum sound is a masterclass in sonic engineering. In Studio D at Westlake, legendary sound engineer Bruce Swedian was tasked with creating a drum sound that nobody had ever heard on tape before. Bruce knew that standard recording techniques would make the drums sound flat, so he built a custom wooden platform, raised 5 inches off the floor to decouple the drum kit from the ground. Then Bruce did something bizarre. He took a heavy wool sweater, what he called his drum sweater, and stuffed it inside the bass drum to deaden the resonance. He built a custom wooden isolation box with a sliding glass door around the hi-hat, preventing the sound of the cymbals from leaking into the snare microphone. When drummer Ndugu Chancellor played that iconic opening beat, every single hit was crisp, punchy, and isolated in its own sonic space. But Michael was still not satisfied with the vocals. He wanted the vocal track to feel intimate and electric, as if he were whispering directly into your ear while standing in the middle of a thunderstorm. Bruce Swedian had Michael sing the lead vocals through a rare Shure SM7 dynamic microphone, not an expensive condenser mic, but a simple $50 broadcast microphone. And to get that unmatched vocal presence, Michael sang his lead lines while standing on a specialized wooden riser, overdubbing his own backing harmonies 11 separate times. Each time he sang a harmony, he stepped back 2 feet from the microphone, creating a natural acoustic depth that no digital reverb could ever replicate. When the mixing process began, Quincy Jones and Bruce Swedian mixed Billie Jean 91 times, 91 different mixes. They tweaked the bass level, adjusted the snare decay, shifted the vocal balance, trying to find perfection. After weeks of tweaking, Quincy turned to Bruce and said, "Let's go back and listen to mix number 2. They put mix number 2 on the tape machine. It was raw, aggressive, and punchy. That was the mix that went onto the album. When Thriller was released in November 1982, Epic Records released The Girl Is Mine as the lead single, but radio DJs and listeners immediately gravitated toward track 6 on side 2, Billie Jean. In March 1983, Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean at the Motown 25 TV special, wearing a black sequin jacket, a fedora, and a single white rhinestone glove. He stepped out onto the stage solo. As that 29-second intro played through the auditorium speakers, 47 million viewers watched Michael spin, drop to his knees, and perform the moonwalk for the very first time. In 3 minutes of television broadcast, Billie Jean stopped being just a song. It became a cultural shift that redefined what a pop performance could be. Looking back at Billie Jean today, the song leaves us with 3 powerful takeaways. First, trust your physical instincts over industry rules. Quincy Jones had 40 years of experience, but Michael Jackson knew that 29 seconds of a great bass line was not a mistake. It was an invitation to move. Second, great art often converts personal fear into universal energy. Michael took the paranoia of a stalker and turned it into an infectious groove that united millions of people across the globe. And third, perfection is often found in the earliest attempt. After 91 mixes, the team realized that the magic was already locked in on mix number 2. Where were you the first time you saw Michael Jackson moonwalk to Billie Jean? Let me know in the comments below. This is Behind the Song. Thank you for listening.
In March 1983, Michael Jackson performed Billie Jean at the Motown 25 TV special. Wearing a black sequined jacket, a fedora, and a single white rhinestone glove, he stepped out onto the stage solo. As that 29-second intro played through the auditorium speakers, 47 million viewers watched Michael spin, drop to his knees, and perform the moonwalk for the very first time. In 3 minutes of television broadcast, Billie Jean stopped being just a song. It became a cultural shift that redefined what a pop performance could be. Looking back at Billie Jean today, the song leaves us with 3 powerful takeaways. First, trust your physical instincts over industry rules. Quincy Jones had 40 years of experience, but Michael Jackson knew that 29 seconds of a great bass line was not a mistake. It was an invitation to move. Second, great art often converts personal fear into universal energy. Michael took the paranoia of a stalker and turned it into an infectious groove that united millions of people across the globe. And third, perfection is often found in the earliest attempt. After 91 mixes, the team realized that the magic was already locked in on mix number 2. Where were you the first time you saw Michael Jackson moonwalk to Billie Jean? Let me know in the comments below. This is Behind the Song. Thank you for listening.